Good to be back and see everybody, see all the faces. Really stressful days. You know, at this point, it's been stressful months, possibly even years. And we keep wanting some calm. And we have these visions in our head of what calm looks like. And you know, we have depending on the cultural background, you'll hear things about, keep calm and carry on. And yes, in the middle of an emergency, panic is not helpful. However, there's lots of space between panic and not feeling what's going on. And that's the way sort of the equanimity that is a central teaching in the Buddhist tradition, but also an ideal in many others, gets misconstrued sometimes. We think about equanimity as it doesn't matter what happens, I can just stay calm, it's smooth sailing. And we get this picture in our heads. Anybody who's seen a boat out on the water, or maybe you've just seen a picture in a magazine or in an art gallery, you see a nice stretch of water, you see the boat, and it's just got this little curl of white where it parts the water in front of it, and it looks all so calm and still. And then we think if we're going to make it through and have some semblance of balance, that's how we should be. That's what we think equanimity is. But that's where we've got it all wrong. Because if you're actually on the boat, even when it looks like it's completely still, the boat is doing this, the boat is doing this. It goes up and down and back and constantly rebalancing. They move one foot like this, a little hiccup comes, they have to do whatever they have to do to stay balanced as it all shifts. So really the goal for equanimity or for calm in life is about learning to be the sailor, not the ship. Because life is always going to still do this. Hopefully not as turbulently as it has been recently, but that's where the practice comes in, is if we work on the balance all the time, it makes it easier when times get rougher. Sometimes you still need some extra help, but you've at least got a way of getting some balance going. And in the Buddhist teaching about equanimity, or just like screaming out the window some days, it's that you just let the feeling be, whatever it is. There's actually probably over a decade ago now, and I apologize because I don't remember his name, but there was a Zen teacher who was talking about his Zen teacher, who said the students were all with their teacher one day when he got news that a colleague had died, and the Zen teacher started crying. And of course, as in all Zen teachings, one of the students asked, Master, why are you crying? We're supposed to learn how to have equanimity and not be attached to the world. And the teacher said, but I'm sad, so I should cry. I just shouldn't get attached. Sometimes we hold back those feelings because we think it's just going to swallow us whole. I don't know how many of you have had days like I've had where it felt like if I let myself start crying, I will never stop crying. It has not happened yet. Sometimes it's a pretty big crying jag, but it always stops. And so much energy that we put into holding back those feelings, of not wanting to let them through because we fear what it's going to do to us, that we'll lose control, that we'll somehow have everything, you know, wreak havoc if we feel this thing. And it's actually sort of interesting because that awareness that comes in meditation, that's part of the Buddhist tradition, that learning to sit and you have our, you know, our brains are our brains. Thoughts come, feelings come. And in the meditation process, you're just supposed to notice them, say, oh, I see that you're there, and then let it go. And one of the things that teaches us is that the feelings are actually impermanent too. Some of you may know in the Buddhist tradition, they say a lot of human suffering is because we have this illusion that certain things are permanent and we get attached to them being a certain way when it's all impermanent and changing. And the same is true for our emotions. So just as that teacher said, it's okay, I'm not attached to my tears. They come, and then when they stop, they go. The same can be true for all our emotions. We can just let them come and then let them go. And there's actually several schools of the very contemporary psychotherapy that have included this practice of mindfulness as a beginning step, because they realized a huge amount of the things that they list as symptoms in the DSM-5, I guess we're up to, are really behaviors that we do to avoid other things. Fairly often, feelings that we have. So Thich Nhat Hanh's writing talked about the fear and anxiety. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's sadness. Depending on our family culture, our societal culture, our own life experience, we may have certain things that we are trying to manage just not having. I'm, you know, half English, half Norwegian family culture here. We have all sorts of feelings you're just not supposed to be having. And lots of behaviors designed to keep us from having them. So all different cultures have different versions of them, and different families have them. And depending on your own life history, you could have one that's really a problem, really hard. And the new modalities work with mindfulness as the beginning place to start just letting them be. But the part that I like, so one of the modalities that in my institution, they decided the chaplains should get involved in is what they call acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's not for the acceptance part that they brought us in, it's actually for the commitment part. Because where they take the next step, and in some ways when Thich Nhat Hanh talks about living an awakened life, it's also very similar in that if we can learn to tolerate more those feelings in our lives, the goal is to be able to live the life that fulfills what you want your life to be. Not in terms of monetary things, not in terms of, you know, having the biggest house, but in living the values that are important to you in your life. And that's one of the things that holds us back sometimes from taking action, even ones that we really want to do, is because we're afraid of what'll happen if we do it. There can be, you know, if we go and there's too much anger, if we do something and there's too much sadness or too much anxiety, we're like, I just can't do it. And we've all had days like that. But in the practicing the meditation, the goal is values in my life. What are the things that are really important to me? Whether it's connection to your family, whether it's a commitment to justice and ending injustice, whether it's building community, whatever is of value to you, the goal is to be able to say, when I'm faced with, do I do this thing or do I not do this thing? And it can be a small one. To not hold back because of our fears of the unsettled feelings or the unknown, but to be able to say, I am going to have those feelings. It could be scary. I could feel angry. I could feel really sad. But this thing's really important to me. And I can go that when I get there, I will feel sad or afraid or angry or whatever feeling you're worried about, and it will still be okay. And then I will have done the thing that I actually want to do instead of avoiding doing it. And one of the great, amazing things about this is we don't realize how much energy we put into not doing that, to not feeling those feelings. And just like Thich Nhat Hanh said, it's like the awakening lights up the fire within you. It charges the batteries. But in the acceptance and commitment therapy, it is very much about learning to be in this world. Now, I know it's been rough, and right now times are especially challenging. So I very much hope that each of you will find some time to, when it starts feeling very uncertain, spend some time in the breathing and see what's there. Find some space to build some calm, and the real calm, the type where you balance back and forth and don't just try to be the boat. And as I said, right now the times are challenging and the waves are very, very rough. So it's also a good time to reach out for some support and for some help. That's when that value of community is important. So I hope it's good to be here together, but I hope we find ways to reach out to one another, to support each other, that you reach out to those who can give you some comfort and balance in the middle of all of it, so we can each find a way to live the lives we actually want to be living. Well, we have restrictions because we have masks and social distancing and all those things, but we can still make the choices about what we actually want to do with the time we have and with one another. And I hope we all find our way to be sailors who can ride out a storm rather than trying to be in that smooth ship that isn't real.